Alright, now that we have our sphere with the expression to help it squash and stretch, now I want to create an animation where it makes a single hop. And in the next tutorial we're going to jump into the graph editor to show how we can make that one hop continue through manipulating some of those curves. So let's get started. We have our squash and stretch functionality, and that expression is changing the X and Z scales as I manipulate the Y. Okay, so let's give ourselves a few frames here. We already have a few. Let's I'll go to about 100. I'm going to go to frame 1, and I'm going to start first with just the translate. We're going to move from left to right, and we're going to have him jump probably I don't know, 3 or 4 units here. So that is in translate X. So we go to translate X. I want the key selected, and I want to go to, let's go to 50, and let's key and then let's move to about here. I'll go ahead and go to 4, and we'll key select it. So as you can see, there is now an animation. However, I don't want him moving the whole time. I'd kind of like it. There'd be a pause, and then the jump, and then a pause, and this translate X is moving in this direction. So we're going to have to. I'd kind of like another keyframe at the same position here. Now, if I click and scrub, it's updating the interpolated animation. But if I go to a keyframe and I middle mouse click and drag, notice that the screen view, I'm holding down the middle mouse button, is not updating. It's keeping whatever this keyframe was. So I want to go to 5 here. Let's go. No, let's just go to about 7, and I want to keyframe this so now it doesn't begin until about 7, and then I want to come about to 50, and I'll do the same thing on middle mouse. Then I'm going to go to about 7 before, and I'm going to key selected. So you see what's happening there. Now might be a good time to take a look at our graph editor. Go into Window and Animation Editors, Graph Editor, and this is where our keyframes are graphed. They came up with such a clever name, no? But I'm going to you have our object, whatever object selected, and then anything that's translated. Now notice that there's X and Z in here, but they have that funky color on them. That means they're being controlled by an expression, so we can't really manipulate those. But I'm going to hit F to frame, and you see the keyframes down here. So around 6, we put a keyframe there. You see the keyframe and the value. So we were at 0 in translate X. Select that one, and we were at frame 7 and a value of 0. And here we're at frame 43 and a value of 4. And here a keyframe 50 and a value of 4. So that's how you read these. The up and down is the value of whatever this is, and left to right are the keyframe numbers. Okay, and something I'll go ahead and show you in the graph editor. Once you select something, you have these little handlebars that can be selected, and I may have to hit W. Oh, and you have to use your middle mouse. That's right. And see how that angle can be changed. I'm not moving the keyframe, but I'm moving the angle of these handlebars. And that can affect your animation. So just we're not really going to play with those right now, but I wanted to go ahead and show you that in the graph editor you can move these, and notice both sides are moving. But what if I only wanted to move one from this side? There is a linear tangents, that kind of breaks that tangent, and this gives that an angle straight to the next point. So that's what I mean by linear. What we had, it was a ease in and ease out, which is you flatten the tangent, and that's what was done by default. So when you're working with graphs, a lot of time you'll update your graph and take a look at the animation and see how those changes. And you can move keyframes with W. Hit W and then middle mouse drag. I can move this keyframe to adjust it. Say, hey, I don't want to wait 6 frames before my animation starts. I want to wait 12 frames. So this is the place you can you keyframe it here, and then you can jump in here and modify those. Okay. All right. Well, let's jump back. We will come back to this, but I just want to give you a sneak preview. So we have animated our Y and our translate X, and now I would like to animate our translate Y, the up and down. So I want to go ahead and set a keyframe at the beginning, and I'm going to set a keyframe in the same position here as well. Key selected, and since it's the same value, I'm going to have to manually do it. Now if I were to change the value, and because I have auto keyframe, it would automatically change it, but I'll have to manually reset it if I'm doing something different. So okay, so I go to the middle here, and I'm going to give us a change the vertical, and as soon as I change that, because I had auto keyframed, it set a key. Alright, so that's our glorious jump there. Nothing too exciting. And now in our graph editor, we can look at our translate Z and see what's going on. This is at a value of 1. It goes up to a height. Now if we wanted to adjust the height of the jump, we could take this up or bring it down. 3 is fine. So I want you to kind of see how these correspond with one another. Again, the value of whatever attribute, and then the timeline. Alright, so we now have our hop, and then the next one we want to animate is our squash and stretch. So I'm going to set the scale here, and I'm just going to set it at its default. Key selected, and I want to set the end at that same one. Key selected, but on this one here I want to crouch down just a little bit, and because I changed it, it automatically gives me a keyframe, and I'm going to middle mouse drag, and I want that same position here, and because it's the same, I'm going to have to manually keyframe. So alright, now my squash was the same here and here, and I would kind of like it to be 1. It kind of gets to its original shape there, and because it's changed, alright, and then somewhere in between these two, maybe a little lower. So it's not exactly in the middle, it's probably closer to the end or closer to the beginning. I want to give it a little bit of exaggerated stretch, and then go somewhere around here, a little exaggerated stretch. Alright, nothing too crazy there. Now if I wanted to get a little crazier there, I could flatten that, but it's not really hitting anything, so I think 1 or 0.9 is plenty. So okay, and the last thing I want to do is I want to give it an angle. So notice he's staying completely vertical as it moves. So we want to do some rotate Z on this. So I'm going to go to rotate Z, keyframe at its default position, and I'm going to keyframe at the end. So it ends and begins in the same position. And I'm going to go ahead and keyframe these two. And kind of that. But when it gets started about right here, wait, did I keyframe that? I think I might have keyframed the wrong one. Alright, and then about this way I want to angle it, and it should automatically update. And this one I want to automatically update. So and maybe it hits. It's kind of like a little jiggle when it hits, you know. It hits once and it just stands back up. Let's hit once, scale it back up, and scale it back down. Maybe it doesn't have to go back quite so far. And maybe this could be exaggerated a little bit more, as well as this one. Alright, well that's all for this tutorial, and we're just making that first jump. And it's very important that all attributes that we've animated, the translate X, the translate Y, which is the jump, the rotate, and I hit F to kind of, you see what's going on here. I'm going to flatten these to make these a little smoother. It's important that wherever it stops, this is a value of 0, is the same value where it ends on anything that's animated. Now, the translate X is going to be a different story because we're moving in a direction. So this is fine. But anything else, whatever this value of 1, it needs to end on 1. And in the next tutorial, we're going to actually jump into the graph editor and do some magic. So even though we've manually keyframed one jump, we can come in the graph editor and do some things to make it continually jump without having to go and add more keyframes. So that's what we're looking at in the next tutorial. We'll see you there.